of 30 minutes. Go ahead, ma'am.
Mayong buntag kanatong tanan, Madam Chair, Honorable Councilors of the City Council of Dumaguete, daghang salamat. I feel very privileged not only to be given 15 minutes but more to present before you today. My presentation today, I'm going to limit it to the law. Ako si Golda Benjamin, usa kong abogado. Lumulupyo ko sa Dumaguete, diri ko nagtubo. Ang among mga silingan, mga mangingisda pod sa Look. Maghatod sila og isda namo. Maunang nagpursigido ko nga mo istorya ninyo today. Pero dili ko mag-istorya kabahin sa science ug engineering kay dili man nako training. Ang akong training abogado, so akong ilimit ang akong intervention today on the law. First slide, please. So the outline of my presentation, ang title lang sa akong presentation, Common Sense versus Corruption. And today's topics, next slide, I'll start by discussing ang among analysis kung unsa gyud to inyuhang gibutaran, JVA ba or Memorandum of Agreement. Ang sunod na topic nga akong i-discuss is a brief discussion on the law of Unsolicited Proposal 101. Nakoy gamayng nahibalan ani, Madam Chair and Honorable Councilors, kay dugay man pud ko nagtrabaho sa Senado as one of the lawyers of the Blue Ribbon Committee na didto man pud mag-istorya kabahin sa mga problema sa procurement sa gobyerno. So mao pud ang akong background. Ang sunod na kong istorya, kabahin og public consultations. And of course, I'm going to talk about Corrupt Practices Act. And this is under the law and based on what we have so far. Next slide. Kani, Madam Chair, I come here also bringing the voice of thousands of Dumaguete people. So I feel that it is my obligation to explain the law in very simple terms. Nagmaistra po ko, Madam Chair. So, atong tanawon sa board, ang proseso kung naatay kontrata, mag-start na siya usually with an offer. Mautoy nahitabo sa City of Dumaguete na ay offer ang iimkwerpo through an unsolicited proposal na magama og reclamation, magama og smart city. And so, because of that, the Dumaguete City formed a PPP selection committee ug nag-negotiate ta. Pag humag-negotiate, gi-acceptar nato ug nag-issue ta og notice of award. Now, ang atong legal question karon, kung naatay unsolicited proposal, nagi-offer as a joint venture agreement, ginegotiate as a joint venture agreement, gi-award as a joint venture agreement, unsa man ang anak-anak sa tanan nga proseso? Contract ba? JVA contract ba? Or a mere framework agreement or memorandum of agreement. Next slide. Ang akong tubag, Madam Chair and Honorable Councilors, kontrata ang nigawas ato nga proseso. And I think even the members of this council recognize that. I was doing a transcription of the hearing on July 7. Mr. Bandal, when he offered to sponsor it, said, Madam Chair, before discussing the details of this draft joint venture agreement, may I be given time to present a short video. Thank you, Honorable Bandal. The Chair, Attorney Maxino, said, were the councilors given copies of the proposed JVA, again saying that this is a draft contract prior to the session. Unya, ang last session, dito na to ang mga gamayng kalibog. Kay ang joint venture agreement must be in the form of an ordinance daw. And I'd like to make an argument that under our law, draft joint venture agreement ang atong giatubang. Atong tanawon usa ang next slide. Sa atong ordinansa, kini ang proseso. This is the process. All PPP contracts, meaning including a PPP contract in the form of a JVA, must be signed by the mayor with prior authorization by the Sanggunian Panglungsod through a resolution. I think ang tanan nga nakatrabaho sa konseho, pamilyar ani kay magperma ang atong mayor og mga kontrata kinahanglan man gyud og resolution authorizing him. Now, the next part is very important, which is the crux of the legal issue here. Because our own PPP ordinance says, during the consideration of the draft PPP contract or the draft joint venture agreement by the sangguniang panglungsod, a public consultation or hearing shall be conducted. Unsa bang ang purpose under our law? To present the contract to the people, accountability mechanisms, PPP project, etc., etc. Logical, common sense, di ba? Kaya nga numantang mo authorize sa atong mayor na magpirma og usa ka butang na wala ta kasabot ug wala nato na presenta sa mga mululupyo sa Dumaguete. And so after that, if the mayor gets a resolution authorizing him to sign the draft joint venture agreement, he proceeds to sign it with EM Cuerpo. And because the members of this council are representatives of the people, ang atong mayor na ay obligasyon na mubalik sa konseho, and this is again the third stage of the process. The terms and provisions of the PPP contract must be approved or confirmed by the sanggunian through an ordinance. Wala na mo'y role na usbon ang kontrata kay dili man mo ka partido sa kontrata. Ang partido sa kontrata ang City of Dumaguete ug si EM Cuerpo. But because you have the power to check and balance, sakto ang giingon ni Honorable Masyon, dapat inyong gi-check na kung katong inyong gitugtan na kontrata, maugyod actually ang gipirmahan sa atong mayor. This is very basic parliamentary procedure, Madam Chair. And ato ning i-explain po, I feel very obligated to explain this sa mga tao sa Dumaguete kay daghan manggug kaayong yaw-yaw sa social media na mga divisive. But I'm a lawyer, I made an oath, I did my lawyer's oath to explain the law correctly and without fooling people. Next slide, please. And so, what is the procedure again? Next slide. Atong i-review. Kay maestra mangyug ko. Ako mang i-review para makasabot ang mga estudyante. So, the council is presented a draft PPP contract. Again, the draft joint venture agreement is the draft PPP contract. Kay kanang public partnership contract, pwedeng joint venture, pwedeng build, operate, transfer, ug naay taas nga lista, mga 11 types, depende sa gusto sa atong syudad. The second is, of course, the public consultation and public hearing. Kay, before mo mutugot sa atong mayor na muperma sa usa ka dako na kontrata, dapat madungog ninyo kung unsa ang gibati, unsay naas kasing-kasing ug utok sa mga mululupyo sa Dumaguete. Next slide. Sa mga tanata karon, sunganong wala gikonsulta ang mga tawo, diri nagsugod ang kalibog sa tibuok syudad. And this is what happened, and this is based on the records of this own chamber. Next slide. Wala gikonsulta ang mga tawo kay pagpresentar sa kontrata diri sa konseho. Our legal officer and our mayor told the council that the document before them is a mere memorandum of agreement. Gikan sa atong mayor ang term na memorandum of agreement. Wala na sa ato ang PPP ordinance. Wala na sa balaod on PPP and joint venture. Wala na siya'y basihan. So ang mayor lang ang nagtawag nga memorandum of agreement. Next slide. Naman gyud diri sa konseho karon ang akong papa. Nikuyog ang akong papa nga senior citizen kay maminaw siya sa iyang anak sa tanang tawo nga akong natubang sa tibuok na akong kinabuhi. Kana ra gyud siya akong kahadlukan. Kay isog kay na siya. Magsige na siya ingon nga ikaw kutik-kutihan kayo ka basta mag-review kag document kutik-kutihan. And I feel that it is my responsibility to be kutik-kutihan. Because that's my oath as a lawyer. So I read through the entire draft joint venture agreement presented to the council. Atong tagnaon kung kapila na mention ang word na memorandum of agreement sa dokumento. Pila, tagnaon nato. 0. 0 times. Na-mention ra ang Memorandum of Agreement, katong naghisgot na kabahin sa Memorandum of Agreement na permahan sa City of Dumaguete, EM Cuerpo, and the Philippine Reclamation Authority after pa magsugod ang reclamation. After pa ta mo express na oo, ang Dumaguete pabor sa reklamasyon. But other than that, 0 times to refer to the agreement between the city and EM Cuerpo. How many times na-mention ang term joint venture agreement? Sa kontrata, akong gibasa, line by line. Unsa man ni akong gibasa? MOA ba ni or JVA? 11 times. Nagtudlo ko og obligations and contracts sa Siliman Law. Ang akong gitudlo sa akong mga estudyante, dili lang ang titulo just because ato nang tawgon na Memorandum of Agreement doesn't mean it's not a contract. Very basic. Sa kadaghang kaso nga akong itudlo sa obligations and contracts, dili na gay nako ma-memorize karon. Kaya that's a canalized jurisprudence. Next. Review ta usab. So unsa may responsibilidad sa konseho when you are presented a draft PPP contract? Public consultation and hearing shall be conducted. Ang atong balaod crystal clear. Walay puwertahan para sa pagduda sa balaod na klaro. And if we have the law on our side, we don't have to be afraid. Daghan mang naminaw, namanilive. That's why I'm not afraid. Because even if the law is imperfect, most of the time, the law defends the rights of the people. That is the purpose of the law. To reflect the dreams, hopes, and vision of the people of Dumaguete City. So why did we rush voting and calling this a Memorandum of Agreement? Why did we call a contract that said joint venture agreement 11 times? Why did we call it a Memorandum of Agreement? Next slide. Based on the documents, based on the minutes of this council, it is because Mayor Remolyo said so. This breaks my heart, ladies and gentlemen. Because when you took your oath to serve and represent the people, you did not take an oath to serve and represent the interest of Mayor Remolyo. Representante mo sa taga Dumaguete, representante mo nako nga nihawa sa Dumaguete when I was 16, nisakay og barko for the first time, nilarga to Manila, and lived and fought in Manila for 17 years, but came home, saved money, worked hard, resisted. Sa yaw-yaw sa akong papa nga mag-unsa kas Dumaguete, magnotaryo ka didto, na nakadiyas mga halls of power, ayaw pa uli. I disobeyed my father. And I came home to Dumaguete because I love Dumaguete. And that's why I am angry. Next slide. But I will stick to the law because that's my training. I worked hard and learned from some of the best. This slide is from no less than the Public-Private Partnership Center of the Philippines, explaining in drawing form the process of unsolicited proposal. Layhan man kog drawing kay visual man ko nga tawo. Unya tigulang nako, kapuyan kog basa og daghan kayo. So ang stage daw, when you receive an unsolicited proposal, you evaluate. Kinsa maning niduol sa atong syudad? Na ba ni siya'y kwarta? Rehistrado ba ni siya sa atong Securities and Exchange Commission? Etc., etc. For this project, reclamation, they were even required to submit under our law and under our own ordinance, feasibility study, proof of their legal capacity, proof of their financial capacity, technical documents to prove to the city of Dumaguete na kaya nilang buhaton eh. And so our PPP Selection Committee went through a long process. In fairness sa atong PPP Selection Committee, wala sila nagdali. 2 years silang nag-negotiate. Kabalo si Honorable Ramon Ana, kay member siya sa PPP Selection Committee. So dili nato i-judge nga gidali-dali ang pag-negotiate. Ang nadali-dali ang pagboto. Okay? Next, Swiss Challenge. Dire, naingon akong manghod nga dili abogado. Manosblade na ko kay Swiss Challenge. Unsa na? Swiss Challenge is simply saying, because a company offers to you, and wala siya'y kaparang, dapat i-publish sa city ang bid ani nga kumpanya. Para, kung naay laing kumpanya, nga moingon, ay, hala, lami lagi tong reclamation sa Dumaguete, bi atong kontrahan kay basig maka-afford ta og 20 billion, unya kitay mo daog. That's a requirement in the law. So niagi na og Swiss Challenge, walay ni kontra sa EM Cuerpo. So nakadaog siya. And that's why I wish to take this moment to thank Vice Mayor Tolentino Maxino because she was the one who posted for us the resolution of notice of award. Ang notice of award, ang meaning sa balaod, na human na ang negosasyon, okay, kapasar ni si EM Cuerpo, so ato na siyang i-award. So we went through that. Next slide. Kani, akong gigamit ning timelines, akong mga estudyante, kay mga volunteers man ni sa Salonga Center. Ilang gidrawing, kay ako untang i-present, katuramang ako ang maot nga type. Nya ila kay lami man, colorful. Mauna atong process giagian to negotiate this. 11 meetings in a span of 2 years. Next slide. So if the parties go through so much, should I stop, Honorable Perdices?
Madam Chair, I got notice again and I see our screen, it says
Are we still live?
we're not live.
By the way, the city engineer's office just called us that there will be a brief interruption for 10 minutes because they are going to fix the freezer of the vaccine. Is that right, Attorney Arthur? So we have to go on break for 10 minutes at 10 o'clock.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. You may proceed, ma'am.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. So, mag-review ta. After ang mga partido, ang parties, ang city o CM Cuerpo, naggahin og duha ka tuig na pag-negotiate. Atong pangutano atong kaugalingon. Ang mugawas ba ana kontrata or mere framework agreement? Common sense ra, dili kinahanglag abogado. Kontrata ang mugawas. This is classic, very basic procurement law. Next slide. Now the question is, kung mag-award kag kontrata, is EM Cuerpo qualified? Kaya ba niyang magbugkal og 174 ka ektarya sa kadagatan sa Dumaguete para mugama og isla? And so, due diligence, nakatrabaho man ko ginagmay na corporate law, nag-request ko og document sa EM Cuerpo. So next slide. Kani ang atong gitawag na Articles of Incorporation for this company. The Articles of Incorporation shows what are the negosyo of the company. Unsay iyang negosyo, and under the law, what is it authorized to do? If you read their primary purpose and then their secondary purpose amended in 2018, wala intawoy reclamation. Dili ni sila reclamation company. This is a construction company, ilang mga proyekto, hospital, eskwelahan, airport. Ang Clark Airport, sila ang nag-renovate. Okay? So, dili sila qualified. Next slide. Wala ko na satisfied. Ingon ko, basig tapulan ng abogado ni EM Cuerpo. Maybe the lawyer did not amend to include reclamation. So, mutanaw na po ko. Next step sa abogado, ang tawag due diligence. Ayuhag tuon. Kutikutihan god. Ang tawag sa kong papa nako, kutikutihan. Nitanaw ko sa iyang website. Naa ba siya project ever on reclamation? Never. Never. Wala siya kagama. So kana pa lang, under the unsolicited proposal laws, dapat hagbong na siya. Dili ka qualified, wala kay qualifications, out na ka, tsugi. Next, is the company financially qualified? Again, another requirement of the law. Kita tanan, I'm sure, na iuban diri nakalingkod og back. Is he financially qualified? Kaya ba niya suportahan financially na ba siya kwarta nga mag-reclamation? It is not financially qualified. Company, 23 billion ang project, net worth 1.4 billion. Ako pag yung gibasa yang tibuok financial statement, nag-istorya ko og mga eksperto sa banking, og mga accountant. Asa gikan iyang kwarta? Gikan siya sa utang. Daghan siyang madawat, pero naapa sa gobyerno, naapa sa kamot sa gobyerno, ang iyang receivables, trade receivables, all of it come from government. Because in fairness to this company, it is a quadruple contractor, quadruple A contractor. So daghan ni siyang gibuild nga ginagmay sa ato ang country. And so, wala siya, dili siya liquid. Which brings us to this chika-chika, that a Chinese company, next slide, Polychangda, is actually involved. And we do have copies of the Memorandum of Understanding, never confirmed in this council, which should have been asked when the resolution was presented. Kay okay, wala may problema kung mag-subcontract, normal man as construction. So I went and looked, nanawag pa kong mga amigo sa Manila. Let's check. Is it registered in the Securities and Exchange Commission? It is not. Meaning, wala gani sila registered diri sa Pilipinas, wala sila opisina. Is it licensed by PCAB, Philippine Construction? Wala siya license. Nanugo pa kong mga barkada sa Manila nga, basig dili updated ang website, basig offline, adtua dito be, adtua, tanaw na tugnabay lisensya. Wala. And what is the business model? Nga mahadlok kaayo ko. Manimbarot akong balahibo sa business model. Next slide. Under that MOU nga nalik, kani ang business model. EM Cuerpo will sell its share in the reclaimed land. So di ba, 49% mapunta man sa EM Cuerpo, iya daw ibaligya ni iyahang bahin, ang iyang madawat, the proceeds, ang madawat sa Polychangda, mauna iyang gamiton para ibayad dinhi sa insect na kompanya nga state-owned pagyud. State-owned, meaning ang gobyerno sa China ang nagpanag-iya aning Polychangda. Didto siya mubayad. Pag nakabayad siya, ang Polychangda will enter Dumaguete territory and proceed to do the reclamation work. Next slide. And why should this alarm Dumaguete citizens? Kay ang disenyo sa atong isla, dili typical na reclamation nga musumpay sa atong territory. Di siya mutapot. Ang gibuhat nila gipalayo 30 meters away from our shore. Maglutaw siya. Making it almost impossible to dredge nagikan sa atuang land. Unsa ilang buhaton, magpasulod silag mga barko. This is a confirmed photo from the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Next slide. This is what they're doing in West Philippine Sea, ang ilang pagpaagaw nato karon. They bring in what they call a cutter suction dredger. They suck sand from the sea and ibuhos para mugama silag isla. Now, if you read the joint venture agreement, the company has 3 years to reclaim. 3 years magbugkal ang posibleng mga ingon-aning barko sa atong kadagatan sa Dumaguete para maghimo og isla sa panahon nga ang kinahanglan sa mga tawo sa Dumaguete bugas, tubig nga kusog. Ganina salod pa ko gabi kay hinay among tubig. Tsaktong kuryente nga dili ta mag-brown out at least once every Sunday. Maunay atong importante karon, kinahanglan tang mukaon, kinahanglan tang mutabang sa mga pobre. Dili to potentially let a foreign company dredge and destroy our ocean. Potentially. Kay wala man na gi-present kung kinsay subcontractor ni EM Cuerpo. And let's look at, next slide. And let's look at another disturbing provision. Ako, I stick to the law and unsay dokumento. Dili kulayhan anang pataka o istorya. This is an actual provision in our JVA. Ang city sa Dumaguete has the obligation to adopt all proper measures to enable EM Cuerpo to hire and engage foreign personnel. Hantud anusa. Hantud forever. Kay tan-awo nato ang language for the project. Dili lang for the construction of the project. It's for the project. And we know that in Manila, Chinese companies bring a plane full of their own citizens to build, and then a plane full of their citizens to work in the businesses that they're establishing. Ngano man tang misugot ana nga ang mga taga-Dumaguete hungry for jobs, kinahanglan tag trabaho pero nisugot ta nga pwede di ay foreign personnel. Abi ba nako og para sa pobre ning smart city? Abi ba nako og para sa taga-Dumaguete ning smart city? Ibaligya di ay taana nga provision. Wala man ako na giimbento. Wala man ganin ako na gi-type. Ako nang gi-screenshot. Next. This is just like a reflection. This is in Kawit, Cavite, Pogo Island of the Philippines. It used to be covered by forest. Look at the bottom picture now. Is that what we want for Dumaguete? Kana ba ang atong layhan para sa atong pinalanggang syudad? Ang akong giulian. Pwede naman ta akong magtrabaho sa Manila. Nagpuyo na ko sa Europa for 1 year. Ni uli ko to be like that, to come home to that. Next slide. Under Republic Act 3019, it is a corrupt practice atong usbon, to knowingly approve or grant license, permit, privilege, benefit not qualified to a person not qualified. Corrupt practice daw na siya. Ngano man nga corrupt practice na siya? Because it will threaten the lives of Dumaguete people. Kung dili qualified si EM Cuerpo nga magbugkal og mugama og isla, what if mahugno ng isla? What if kanang isla makakos og flooding? Kaya na may urban planner nga expert ni sulat sa Facebook, it will block potentially 6 waterways. Maglunop ta dire, and this is not being alarmist because I've been to Cambodia where they also built islands and they're now flooding the mainland. So relax na dato ang EM Cuerpo, ang taga Dumaguete na nga lunod. Abi ko ba, lupad Dumaguete, malumos Dumaguete di ay ta. Dili na pwede. Next slide. It is also corrupt practice to enter on behalf of the government contracts that are manifestly or grossly disadvantageous. Kanang malugi ta. Kaning corruption, class, lingon na lang kong class, kaya gawas akong pagkamaestra. Kaning corruption, dili kanang maghatod og bag nga daghang milyon-milyon dito sa balay sa mayor o sa konsehal. It is also corruption when you enter into a government contract that is manifestly and grossly disadvantageous. It is ironic because I used to prosecute politicians when I work in Blue Ribbon precisely for this provision. And it pains me that I'm seeing this now right before my eyes. Nabuhi siya usob. So why is it manifestly grossly
I'm sorry to interrupt. You have 1 minute left. Any motion to extend?
I move to extend, Your Honor, the time of Atty. Golda to speak.
Madam Chair.
How many
For at least
minutes
another 10 minutes, Your
do you
Honor.
have?
I need 5 minutes,
5
Madam
minutes.
Chair.
We just give her 10 minutes, Your Honor.
Thank you, Honorable Bandal.
Okay, you'll have until 10:15.
All right. Now let's go to the terms of the contract. The contract says the city will have a share in 25% of the ancillary businesses. But the contract also enumerates what these businesses are. Look at the screen again, ladies and gentlemen. Asa man diha nga negosyo ang maka-employ og libu-libong tao, og libu-libong kwarta ang mugawas. Yacht Club, akong gipangutana ang Yacht Club sa Manila, dako man na sila kaayo. 32 employees. Asa naman ang promised jobs nato, ana? Picnic Grove, pila man kabukatong ma-employ? And we agreed to 25% share. Katiting. Next slide. We also agreed to waive regulatory fees and local taxes for the construction of the project. So if they're building here for 3 years, we will not collect regulatory fees and local taxes. So where's the promise of instant money for the city? We also said EM Cuerpo will pay real property tax only when they get title to the lands. Next slide. But we know, under the Constitution, next slide, private corporations cannot own public lands. Nasayop ng private, public lands. That's already a decided case, Pea Amari case, labeled as the grandmother of all scams. Layhan Bataana. And this is what breaks my heart. Ako, ganina naggisi-gisi kong papel, kaya I want this to be visual. Under our contract, 49% of the total reclaimed lands will go to EM Cuerpo. So inani kadako, ato imagine nun. Under PRA rules, Section 3, the government share, 30% must be devoted to roads, open spaces. Under PRA rules, the share of the PRA should be 60% of the share of government. Goes to open roads, goes to PRA. What is left sa akong kaluoy na syudad? Kanina lang. Maura ni ang mabilin nato. We're destroying at least 3 marine protected areas that our honorable councilors have already protected through an ordinance, through extensive debates. We are not giving and promising people enough jobs. Kaya ato manggilabay ang provision on share on businesses. Katiting na bahin sa yuta, ibaligya ba nato ang Dumaguete? Next slide. Was that fixed when the council or when the mayor amended the joint venture agreement? No. Kung dili ka appeal sa kontrata, dili ka appeal sa nag-negotiate, pwede bang ikaw ang mu-amend sa kontrata? I don't need to pass the bar. Common sense. Ano kang galabot-labot? Ano ikaw mo mu-amend? You can't. Because you're not party to the contract. And ladies and gentlemen, this is not a simple procurement. This is not a simple contract na anytime pwedeng i-amend. You awarded it after a long 2-year process. Ug unsay imong giagrihan, that's what you are bound to. Our PPP ordinance does allow amendment. But the exception is very narrow. Only when it does not manifestly alter the nature of the contract. What does that mean? If the contract is about owning lands, dili ka pwedeng mo amend na, dili na pwedeng own land kay na nagsaba-saba nga under violation sa Constitution. It's a very narrow exception. And that's why I love studying. Ang ako mga igsoon, maingon akong hobby studying. Golda, hobby studying. Because I like studying. So we cannot amend. And so, these are the defects. There was no public consultation in violation of our own PPP ordinance that all of you voted to pass. It violates our own PPP ordinance. And it's a good ordinance. Naatay transparency provision na powerful kayo. It is a corrupt practices because an unqualified contractor who could potentially sink thousands of lives on that island, kaya dili man niya negosyo. There are suspicious subcontractors involved, and I want to manifest. EM Cuerpo's GIS, General Information Sheet, public document submitted to the SEC, and the MOU of EM Cuerpo with Polichangda were notarized by the same lawyer. The coincidence is too much. Connected ni sila. Next, it's a corrupt practice to enter into economically disadvantageous contract. Kung nagtuog yun ta nga maayo ni sa atong syudad, nganong didto man ta sa palugi, nganong lugion man yun ang taga Dumaguete, nganong mang katiting atong share, ani nga contract. And most of all, because I'm a lawyer, why do we enter into an unconstitutional contract? Do we want Dumaguete to be the situs of the next grandmother of all scams? Kita na nga ang gisugdan sa COVID. Next seat na punta on the grandmother of all scams. Maulaw ko. Next, we must remember that last hearing, this council approved not just the authority for the mayor to enter into this invented beast called Memorandum of Agreement. It approved a resolution of no objection to the project. Dili lang no objection na magsugod si mayor og apply. It was a resolution of no objection to the project, which is one of 3 requirements in the PRA. Para magsugod na ning application. It's the letter of intent which you also approved. It's the resolution of no objection. That's section 4 of the PRA guidelines. Moong sakit kaayo ni kanako. Next. After hearing all that, I ask myself, kay naluyan ako, should Dumaguete, kay makadungog manggugo, let's give this contract a chance. Let's give this contract a chance. So my question now is, should Dumaguete give an illegal, environmentally catastrophic, economically disadvantageous, and corrupt contract a chance? Is that what we deserve, ladies and gentlemen? Next slide. The people of Dumaguete deserve better. We are not asking the honorable councilors and the chair of this council to go above and beyond their duty. We are simply asking you to do your job, defend the law, uphold the Constitution, and most of all, represent the dreams, hopes, and vision of every Dumaguete resident. Daghang salamat, proud kaayo ko nga naa ko diri.